All right. So we are on chapter 5. So let's just start with the in-class practice problem. So how long does it take to double your money if the interest rate is 0.5% per month? So I asked you to do the calculation using Excel at home. So let's see how many of you have the right answer. Jackie thinks it's 1,387 months. So who agrees with that? 1,300 months. That's a long time, right? It's over 100 years. Is it right? Any other thought? Has anyone? But thanks for trying, Jackie. But it looks, yeah, yes. I think 138 months. 130. Actually, my more than 138 months. I think the correct answer is 139 months. So, but you, Abigail, you are closer. So this is a good example. So after you do the calculation, you need to think about to make sure that your numbers make sense. So let's do it together. Yes, yeah, you got good, Abigail. You got 138.9 months on Excel. So it's almost 139 months. So good. So you got it right. Good. Alex, do you have a question? Hi. We are working on the practice problem on slide number 5. So the reason for thank you for the participation, and Jackie and Abigail. So the question is, yeah, we are looking at the Excel file. Okay. Share screen. When you click the Excel file on the slide number 5, so how long does it take? You can open this Excel file. How long does it take to double your money if the interest rate is 0.5% per month? So you use the number of period function to, you need to use the number of period function to calculate how long it takes to double your money. So good thing is Excel is showing the formula. So number of period formula requires rate, payment, present value, and future value. So G5, so present value 1. So double your money means present. So your money $1 becomes $2 in the future. So how long does it take when the interest rate is 0.5%? So 0.5%. Yeah, so this is how you get 138. But take a closer look. Yeah, it looks like I see something in the chat box. So. So Alicia, Ishan, okay, yeah, good. So Alicia, Ishan. Yeah, Alicia, when I was looking at the Zoom waiting room, I was seeing that different name, so I was wondering who is it. So good, thanks for the clarification. So Alicia, Ishan. All right. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. And as you can see that if someone is using a different name or arriving late, it takes up other students' time for the class. So in the future, try to avoid that kind of situation, arrive early and use the correct name displayed. So, but at least if your name is different, and then if I don't know, you have notified me that you should write it on the chat box. All right. So here, going back there, so present value, future value, how am I following the sign convention? Here, as I mentioned before, both numbers cannot be positive. So either one should be negative. So how did I take care of it? Here, I put the negative sign there. Or you can remove this negative sign here and make either one negative. So anyway, my point is you should let Excel know you should make Excel understand the problem correctly. Okay. Any questions so far? All right. So how about if I ask you, what if the interest rate you can earn is 2% per month instead of 0.5% month? Then what's going to happen? How long will it take to double your money if the interest rate is 2% per month instead of 0.5% per month? It will take a lot shorter to double your money if you can earn high interest rate, right? So let's do this like, for example, how to do this. So number of period, you can make another Excel file. Excel shows what's the rate. So if you can earn 2% per month, so 2% is 0.02, 2% per month, and payment is 0, and present value, you invested $1, so cash outflow, and to make it $2, twice, double your money, so it takes only 35 months. So what if 2% per month? So if you should be able to calculate these kind of questions easily. So any questions? No? Okay, then let me close it and then move on. Okay. So today we will finish chapter 5 and move on to chapter 6. And what you are going to learn today are very important, and if you get lost, you will have a very difficult time down the road. So buckle up. We will shift through very complicated, challenging concepts, but it's not too bad. But what I mean is, it's very useful. The time value of money calculation you are going to do today will be the groundwork for understanding many other topics in the future, as well as what you are going to learn today is very relevant to your real lives. For example, car loans, mortgages, that kind of calculations all are based on what you are going to learn today. So, but you can easily get lost. So pay special attention to what you learned today. Okay, right? Let's go back to chapter 5 slide. But so far the calculations are not too bad, right? So this chart shows, graphically illustrates the power of compounding. So this graph shows how $100 of grows at 10% per year based on compounding. So 10% of $100 is $10. So after 1 year, $100 will become $110. After another year, both your original $100 and interest earned during the first year, $10, both of the money, principal and interest, will grow at 10%. So that's why at the end of the second year, you are gonna have $10, 10 more dollars, plus $1 more on the interest. So at the end of the second year, you are gonna have $121 instead of $120, because the additional $1 is the interest on the first year's interest $10. So the blue part shows interest on interest. So that makes the difference between compounding and simple interest. So as you can see, the interest on interest part keeps getting larger and larger. The blue part getting larger and larger. So for example, after 5 years, you are gonna have $100 principal plus $50 of interest on principal and another $11.05 for interest on interest. So this is what I mean here. Can you decompose the $161.05, the future value after 5 years, into 3 components? So the 3 components are, as I just mentioned, $100, your original money, principal, and $50 interest on principal of $100, and $11.05 on is the interest, the third component, interest on interest. Any questions so far? If I ask you in a quiz or exam, what's the interest on interest? Can you answer that question? You should be able to. So any questions so far? No? Next, there is another illustration of the compounding impact. So compounding becomes very powerful in what kind of situations? As the time period gets longer, compounding becomes more powerful. And as interest rates increases, compounding becomes very powerful. But in a very low interest rate, if the interest rate is 0, of course, there is no compounding. Compounding doesn't matter when there is no interest. But once you have a positive interest rate and the compounding starts making differences. When interest rate goes up, compounding starts making difference. But you can see that compared to 3-year versus 5-year versus 10 years, you can see that, compounding impact becomes bigger. And when rates are higher, the differences become larger. So this is especially important for young people like you. So that's why you need to start early. When you invest, you need to build your nest egg starting early. So it may sound a faraway issue, retirement, setting up a retirement account. It's not, because you can see that this compounding impact long term. So who starts late, like in those who start saving for retirement in their 30s, 40s versus starting in their 20s, the difference is huge. All right. Next. So the remaining slides are just the modification of the concept you learned so far. So as I mentioned before, chapter 4, if I ask you, if you ask me, what's the most important thing you need to understand in chapter 5, this equation. So this equation, chapter 5 is all about the relationship between present value, future value, interest, and number of period. So this is the mathematical relation. And the process of converting present value to future value using this equation is called the compounding. And why am I asking you a similar question once more in this slide? It will become clear. So suppose you deposit $700 in a savings account. That's present value. You deposit $700 now. So that's present value. Then the compounding is monthly, and the annual interest rate is 6%. So my question is, what should be R you should use in this equation? Is it 6%? The answer is no, it's not 6% because annual interest rate is 6% quoted by law, but the compounding is monthly. So when you apply this monthly compounding situation, then you should use monthly interest rate. So 6% per month, 6% per year means 6 divided by 12, that's 0.5% per month. So R should be 0.5%, which is equivalent to 0.005 decimal. So when you use equation, you should use decimal. So 700 multiplied by 1 plus 0.005 to the power of t. And how long will it take to have $1,000 in the account? So how long it will take to make $700 become $1,000? So $1,000 is a future value. And how long does it take? Means you need to find the number of periods here. You can use your mathematical skills to solve for t, or you can use a financial calculator, PA2+, or you can use an Excel file to compute for number of period. It's exactly the same as what we did using doubling money in class practice problem. You use the same formula, number of period, but you need to be careful about what kind of interest rate you need to use. Annual rate converted to monthly, that's all. And also, as I mentioned before, in calculator and in Excel, sign convention. If you make 700, 1,000 both positive, you will get an error message. Excel is not as smart as human. So you need to make your Excel spreadsheet workable by understanding Excel's rule. So any questions so far? No, then we are ready to move on. What about the next question? So suppose you deposit $700, the same question, similar question, $700, you wanna make it become $800, 2 years, and what kind of interest rate can make that happen? So $700 becomes $800 in 2 years. So, and monthly, what's the monthly interest rate? So this is a monthly compounding problem. So you should use 24 as number of period instead of 2, because the account is being compounded monthly. So annual versus monthly and sign convention. So that's the reason I'm giving you another example here. So as you can see from here, Excel is a very convenient tool to do this time value of money calculation, but it's very easy to make errors. So it's very important for you to practice. So my recommendation is don't use my Excel file. Use your own Excel spreadsheet and try to find the answer and compare your answer with mine. So this is the monthly rate you should be able to get. So don't look at my solution and build your own Excel spreadsheet to find the answer. So that's very important. If you don't do that kind of practice, and if you wanna practice, if you take a quiz or an exam without that kind of practice, you will not be able to answer my questions quickly. So your grade will not be good. So to prevent that kind of situations, you should practice using examples on the slides in the book, as well as connect problem sets, connect homework, okay? Next question. So suppose your mother deposited money in the savings account for you 2 years ago. The compounding is monthly and annual interest rate 6%. If there is 2,000 in the account now, how much did she deposit in the account 2 years ago? So this question is asking you to calculate present value. So 2,000 is the future value, 5%, 0.5% is the monthly rate, 2 years, 24 months. So solving for the present value. So you should build your own Excel file and you should be able to answer this question using your Excel file. Right? And also you should be able to answer conceptual questions using, so after you're familiar with doing this calculation, you should have develop an intuition about time value of money concept. So this slide is aiming at helping you developing intuitions. So what if you should pay $1,000 to somebody in the future? So you are liable. You have a liability of $1,000. So what's the value of your liability? So what if you should pay $1,000 to someone in the future? What's the present value of that $1,000 liability? So you can just use this present value and future value relationship. So present value is future value divided by 1 plus the discount rate to the power of t. So this is what we learned in this chapter. So in this example, $1,000 is the future value. And if the interest rate is fixed, so for a given interest rate, the longer the time period, the lower the present value. So if the $1,000 you have to pay is, you should pay $1,000 in 1 year versus in 30 years. The present value of that $1,000 liability is, the difference is huge. So which liability is a lot smaller? The 30-year $1,000 that should be paid in 30 years have a present value, will have a tiny present value compared to $1,000 liability that should be paid in 1 year. So for the same interest rate, the longer the time period, the lower the present value. So this equation exactly helps you understand that kind of relationship. So there is an inverse relationship between number of period and the present value when other variables are fixed. And what if the time period is fixed? So if you are looking at the same period, like if you are comparing 30-year liability of 1,000, so you have to pay someone $1,000 in 30 years. So for a given time period, the lower the interest rate. So when market rates go down, what happens to the present value of the liability? Wow. So when $1,000 is fixed and 30 years is fixed, but when rates go down, so rate is in the denominator, when rates becomes tiny, the present value will jump. So for a given time period, the lower the interest rate, the higher the present value. So interest rate and present value have a inverse relationship as well. So when interest rate gets smaller, present value goes up. So this is clear from this mathematical relationship, and this simple mathematical relationship has a huge implication in the real lives. So let's take a moment to think about what kind of interest rate environment we are living. So how high is the interest rate right now? Any idea? Yeah, I see someone wrote something in the chat box. Yeah, close to zero. So the market rate, like when we talk about market, yeah, so 0.0. So simply speaking, think about how much interest rate you can get on your savings account. So when you go to bank account and checking account and savings account, how high is the interest rate? Close to zero. Was it always like this low interest rate? No, interest rate, sometimes interest rate is much higher than right now, but especially because of after the COVID-19 pandemic, Fed lowered the discount rate. So a lot of market interest rates are affected by the federal fund rate decision. So many rates tied to that went down. So your bank will charge or pay interest rate tied to that kind of movement. So we are living in a very low rate environment now, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic. So what's the impact? So many of you, I think, here are accountant, majoring accounting. And also, if you, some of you may want to work for a pension fund in the future, and actually this discussion affects many others, retirees as well. Some of you, like your parents, grandparents, retirees. So this kind of market interest rate and present value interest rates impact on the liabilities and assets and equity. That's a very important issue that affects everybody. And just especially, let's take a focus on pension fund, managing retirement funds for like firefighters. So pension funds for firefighters, the pension fund has a lot of liability. They need to pay, they should pay a certain amount, fixed amount to retire the firefighters in the future. So that's the future value. So it's a future fixed payment. That's the liability of pension funds. And suddenly, so let's say $1 million is the pension fund liability for a certain group of firefighters that should be paid in 30 years. And every quarter, the pension fund has to prepare a financial statement balance sheet. So what's the value of the pension liability? When market interest rate is 2% per year versus 0% per year, or 6% per year versus 1% per year, when rates go down, present value of the liability jumps. So that's what I meant here, real world example. What happened to the defined benefit pension funds after the burst of the dot-com bubble in 2001? So in 2001, we had a dot-com bubble, burst of dot-com bubble, and market interest rates dropped sharply. And I'm using the 2001 example, but the history repeats over and over again. In 2008, financial crisis. In 2020, COVID-19 crisis, same problem repeats. Whenever there is a recession or significant negative impact on the global economy, market rates drop. That means present value of future liabilities payment goes up. So the present value of that affects many institutions. So that's one of the reasons you need to learn the time value of money concept well. In this chapter and the next chapter will help you understand the time value of money dynamics. So any questions so far? Next, I give you another practice problem. So you have $1,000 or $10,000 to invest for 5 years. How much additional interest you will earn if the investment provides a 5% annual return compared to 0.5% annual return. So this is an annual return problem. So you have $10,000 to invest for 5 years. So that means $10,000 is present value. And 5 is the number of period. And this is an annual problem. So number of period is 5. So 10,000 future value and 5 is number of period. And you're comparing two situations. Interest rate 5% versus 4.5%. How much additional interest will you earn? So that means you are comparing, you do two calculations. So using 5%, you calculate future value, and using 4.5%, calculate future value. So definitely future value based on 5% will be higher compared to future value based on 4.5% future value. So the question is, what's the difference in future value? So you should build your own Excel file to answer the question. So to save time, I leave this practice to you. And actually, I provided answers at the bottom. So the difference is $301. But my recommendation is don't look at my answer. Just hide it, and you build your own Excel file and make sure you can do the future value calculations and find the difference. So you should do the practice. Any questions so far? No? Let's move on. So another practice, what annual rate has been earned if 1,000 grows to 4,000 in 2 years? So 1,000 becomes 4,000 in 2 years. So that means present value negative 1,000, future value 4,000, number period 20. You should build an Excel file that calculates the rate using the rate function. So again, the answer is here, but don't look at this and build your own spreadsheet to find the answer. Right? Any questions? Next. The last slide of this chapter is showing a variation. So what if interest rate is not constant? So in the previous example, for example, go there. Yeah, here in the previous example, we are just using 5% annual rate for 5 years or 4.5 annual rate for 5 years. So for the 5-year period, we apply the same interest rate in all the practice problems before the last one. But in the real world, rates are changing. We just talked about COVID-19. To fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, Fed decided to lower the federal fund rate, and that affects everybody in the market. So market rates are going down. And so we just talked about market rates are changing all the time. But in previous examples, we just, for convenience, we just practiced using the same interest rate for this number of period we are looking at. But after you understand the same interest rate, the basic problem, you should be able to apply your knowledge to other more complicated real world situation. And this is one example. What if we are looking at a time period when interest rate change in the middle? What should we do? So I'm giving you a simple numerical example to help you understand what to do. So you deposit $100 in a savings account for 3 years. So if the interest rate on your savings account is 6% for the first year, but interest rate dropped after the first year, and it becomes 4% for the remaining 2 years. So how much you will have in 3 years? So the present value is $100. And you need to find how much you will have in the future, so future value. But the interest rates are changing. If interest rate is the same, you can use this simple formula. But interest rate is changing. So what you need to do is you keep applying the same logic to different rates. So after the first year, your $100 will grow during the first year, your $100 will grow at 6% for 1 year. But after that, so after 1 year, this becomes your principal. So this money, this will become your basis after the first period, and this will grow, this present value will grow at the next interest rate, 4% in this case, for 2 years. So keep applying this logic down the road using updated interest rate. So first you start with present value 100, but it will become this amount after the first period, and this present value at that moment will grow, will be compounded using new interest rate for this period. So keep applying the same, this is simple logic to different rate periods, and you will get the correct answer. This is exactly what I'm doing here. $100 growing at 6% for 1 year, and the whole amount, principal plus interest, starts acting like a principal and grow at 4% for additional 2 years to get the new future value. So this is what to do, what you need to do when rates change. So we finished chapter 5. Any questions so far? No questions? Okay, good. Now we can move on to chapter 6. And chapter 6, it's a lot more complicated and longer. So buckle up. But but it's not too bad. So the good thing about the time value of money is, let me share chapter 6 slides. The good thing about the time value of money calculations, once you know what to do and you practice and you become familiar with the concepts and calculations, you can answer any questions easily. So the important thing is you overcome the hurdle. So the hurdle is not low, it's quite high, but I will try to make it manageable. But once you overcome the hurdle, every question you can answer. So that's the beauty about this time value of money calculation. So here, what's the difference between chapter 5 and chapter 6? In chapter 5, we only looked at one cash flow. Like, if you remember, your $100 growing for 3 years. After 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So you have only one cash flow growing at what rate, present, future value, present value, period, interest rate. So we just look at one cash flow, the present value, future value. That was the chapter 5 concept. But in chapter 6, we start working with many cash flows. So we are not limited to one cash flow growing and discounting. There are many cash flows there. So that's why chapter 6 becomes more complicated. And that's when you start using this payment key as well. So when there are many cash flows appearing, you start using the payment key. But before we get to the payment key, let's start from a more basic multiple cash flow problems using a simple numerical example. So suppose you invest $500 in a mutual fund today and $600 in 1 year. So see, the $600 investment will be made in one year from today, not today. So if the fund pays 9% annually, how much will you have in 2 years? So we have two cash flows, $500 today and $600 deposited in 1 year. And we need to find the future value in 2 years for these two cash flows. So that this is the one multiple cash flow problem. This is a multiple cash flow problem. So how can you find the future value of these two investments in the future? So you can do the calculation one by one. So the future value, the value in your mutual fund account in 2 years will be $500 you deposited today, earning 9%. How long? For 2 years. Plus $600 You deposit next year, not now, and it's growing at 9% for 1 year. So that the total is $1,248.05. So this is a simple example of working with the time value of money problem of two cash flows, multiple cash flows. It's not too bad, right? So any questions? Good. No questions? Good. Next example. Suppose you plan to deposit $100 into an account in 1 year. So you're not depositing it now. So you plan to deposit $100 1 year from today, and $300 into the account, the same account, in 3 years. And how much will be in the account in 5 years if the interest rate is 8%? So in the future, if you see interest rate is 8%, what you should do? You should assume that per year. So if nothing is written about on interest rate, just a number, you should assume that the interest rate is per year. If not, if the rate is not per year, it should be written explicitly. So that's the market convention. So in finance classes, in finance press, when you just look at the rate, just a number, assume that it's per year rate. If not, it should be written explicitly. So, this question looks a little bit more complicated. How much will you have in the account in 5 years? So when you answer this kind of multiple cash flow problem, you must draw a timeline. So this is my recommendation. So graphically illustrate to answer the question, to avoid the confusion, to avoid an error. So this is what I mean here. So draw a timeline. You are now here. Time 0 means now, present value. So we are currently now at time 0. So that's now, present. And 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year. So you plan to deposit $100 1 year from today. So here. And plan to deposit $300 3 years from today. And this question is asking how much you will have in 5 years, future value at time 5. So how to find the value of those two investments 5 years from today? So the first investment, $100 made 1 year from today, will have how many years? 1, 2, 3, 4 years to grow. So 100 growing for 4 years at 8%. So that's the future value, time 5 value of the first $100. And what about the next one? $300 deposited 3 years from today, have how long? How many years to grow? So it has 2 years to grow at 8%. So that's the future value of the $300. So the total will be $485.97 after 5 years. So as you can see, if you would just try to write down this equation, you may be confused or you may make some errors. So to avoid any confusion, to prevent errors, I strongly recommend you draw a timeline when you have multiple cash flows, time value of money problem to clear up confusion. Any questions? No? Good. So let's move on to present value calculation. Similar question. So you're considering an investment that will pay you $1,000 in 1 year, $2,000 in 2 years, $3,000 in 3 years. So this is a multiple cash flow problem. If you want to earn 10% on your money, how much would you be willing to pay? So what's the present value of an investment that is expected to make pay you this kind of cash flow if the appropriate discount rate is 10%. So this is a good example of the valuation in finance. So the valuation in finance is all about finding the right price for cash flows that will be made in the future. So here are the cash flows that will be made in the future, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. And finding the right discount rate is another very important and challenging concept in finance. But here, this is an intro course, so you're not there yet. So I'm just giving you the right discount rate is 10%. So once you get the discount rate, given the task is very simple. Now, later, those who are finance students here, buckle up. You're going to learn a lot about how to find the right discount rate. Later in this course, as well as a lot more in investment and other finance classes. But right now, just focus on the simple task of using the given interest rate to find the value. So if 10% interest rate is given, our simple task is just finding the present value of all the future cash flows. So 1,000 in 1 year, 10% discount rate, 2,000 in 2 years, 10% discount rate, 3,000 in 3 years, 10% discount rate. You add all, you find the present value of all future payments. So this is the value. So you should be willing to pay up to $4,815.92 for this security that's expected to pay, make this 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 payment in the future. But if the market interest rate changes and then suddenly, for example, we did the calculation for 10% interest rate, but suddenly market's going rate becomes 2%, and definitely what's going to happen to the present value? Rates go down, present value will jump. So this kind of security price will jump, and vice versa. But what if rates go up? Present value will go down. So that's why every day you see financial securities prices going up and down. There are many news events affecting the discount rate for a security. So that kind of interesting dynamics are there in the stock market, bond market. So to get there, to understand that kind of dynamics, you first need to take a tiny step to understand this time value of money, the relationship between interest rate and present value and future value, number of periods. So that's what we are doing here now. So I just added several additional comments to help you understand the usage of those calculations, but right now you may feel a little bit confused because of that kind of added discussions. But right now, if you feel that, oh, that's complicated, don't worry. You don't have to worry too much about those complications. Just in this slide, focus on this question. 1,000 in 1 year, 2,000 in 2 years, 3,000 in 3 years. If this security you are looking at is promising you to pay that money in the future, and your job is to find the present value of those 3 cash flows at the 10% discount rate. So if you can do the task and if you can find this present value, you're okay now. Any questions so far? No? Okay, good. And I'm giving you also you should practice using your Excel file, but you already learned how to use Excel spreadsheet to do the present value, future value calculation. So you apply the same present value, future value, rate, and number of period function you used in the previous chapter. You can apply that functions to this chapter 6 problems. So for multiple cash flows, you can apply the present value, future value equation to each cash flow, and you can easily do the calculation. And in the next slide, I start giving you some other variations. So in the previous examples here, when we have multiple cash flows, so the amount is different, not all the same amount. So 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. So in this case, you need to do the calculations one by one, just like this. But what if we have many cash flows, but what if all have the same number? So for example, mortgage question. So if you buy a house using a 30-year mortgage, you make the same, and 30-year fixed rate mortgage, the most common, that's the most common type in the US mortgage market. So 30-year fixed rate mortgage. So that requires monthly payment. So how many payments are there actually? 360 payments, because it's 30-year monthly payment. And in the standard 30-year fixed rate mortgage, all payments are the same. So you borrow money now and start making monthly mortgage payment next month, the following month, for 360 times. So should we find the present value of those 360 monthly payment one by one? We can do that using Excel, but it will take very long. So in that case, instead of using one by one calculation for 360 monthly mortgage payment, let's use Excel's function. So Excel is using a computer. So computers are a lot faster doing all those calculations compared to human. So that's when we need Excel's payment function. So the payment function, payment key, payment we set equal to 0 in the previous chapter is used in this kind of calculation. Same amount of cash flow repeating many times during that set period. So that's we are trying to talk about in this slide. So let's go step by step using a numerical example. So suppose you deposit $700 per month in a savings account for 12 months, starting 1 month from today. So in this problem, we are doing, you're looking at a more simpler example. We are looking at a simpler example. So $700 per month deposit for 12 months, starting 1 month from today. So if the rate is 6% per year, how much will you have in a year? So we have 12 cash flows here. But the good news is everything is the same. So let's go step by step. So $700 deposited 1 month from today. The first $700 deposited 1 month from today. How many periods it has to grow? So we are looking at 12 cash flows of $700 each. So at the end of the 12 months, that means at the end in 1 year, when we look at the $700 first deposit made 1 month from today, how long it will grow? It will grow for 11 months, right? So it will grow for 11 months. At what interest rate? 0.5% per month, because it's 6% per year. So this gives we apply the same present value, future value equals present value multiplied by 1 plus rate to the power of t. We apply this equation to the first $700 deposited 1 month from today. Any questions so far? And we do the same for all the remaining $11,700. So the second $700 that's deposited 2 months from today has how many periods, how many months? 10 months to grow at the same 0.5%. So this is the future value of the second $700. So you can do the same for all the $700. So what about the last one? The last $700 that is deposited 12 months from today. It doesn't have any time to grow. So it's power to the 0. That means it's 1. So this factor is 1. So that means it's not growing. It simply doesn't have time to grow. So it's just $700. So what's the future value of these 12? So you can do the calculation one by one, and you can get the future value. But we are smart people. So already smart mathematicians found a way to simplify the question. So you may remember, some of you may have taken math courses in the past in high school or as a gen ed. You may have learned geometric progression. So in math, there is a geometric progression topic. There is a math course teaching that, and using the geometric progression knowledge in math courses, these two equations are equivalent. I know how to do it, so I can show you how to derive it, but this is not a math class. This is a finance class, so we don't have time to convert this equation to this. So you can just use this equation, or that's when we need a financial calculator. So financial calculator or Excel knows this calculation. That's already programmed into Excel and financial calculator. So using the financial calculator or Excel, $700 is the payment. So $700 is the same payment repeating, so 700. So why am I using negative? Because $700 deposit investment, cash outflow. And how many 700 deposits? 12 months. So 12 is the number of period. What's the rate? 0.5%. And compute future value, and that's the answer. And why didn't I write any present value? Because there is no present value. Present value, there is no current deposit, so present value is 0, but instead we have payment. So when I click the Excel file, so I stop share and I show you the Excel file. Yeah. So here, present value is 0 because no deposit currently made, but payment is repeating equal interval, every month 700 deposits is made, so negative 700, and number of periods 12, rate 0.5, and you use the future value function. You use the same future value function, rate 0.5%, number of period 12 months, payment. Now your payment is not 0, it's 700, repeating. And this kind, and present value is 0. So you didn't deposit anything now, and computing future value. So this is how to do the this kind of multiple cash flows repeating same amount equal interval. So that's how to do the future value, present value calculation for this type of multiple cash flow. And this cash flow has a name, annuity. So, all right, let me share this slide again. So this kind of cash flow is called annuity. And the next slide shows definition. Annuity is called the finite series of equal payments. So in finite series. So in the previous example, we had the finite series, so 12 months. So it ends at the end of 12 months. So that's why I call it finite. So finite series of equal payment, in this example 700, that occur at a regular interval, in this example monthly. So if the first payment occurs at the end of the period, this is called an ordinary annuity. So in my if we just say annuity, we mean ordinary annuity. But if the first payment occurs at the beginning of each period, it's called an annuity due. So going back to this problem, is this annuity or annuity due? What do you think? So this chapter 7, it is a question in slide 7. Is this an annuity problem or annuity due problem? So think about it, okay? Think about it. And while you think about it, I will take attendance using the screenshot. Copy screen. And I will paste in my attendance book for my record. So I copy the first page. And then there are 2 pages, so I need to copy, move on to the second page, and then take a screenshot, and then copy the second screenshot to my attendance file. And then I also want to keep all the chats just in case we need it in the future. So let's see, I'm down. Let's see, chat, and then yeah, I see. Yeah, Jackie, thank you. You're right. This is ordinary annuity because the 700 monthly payment starts 1 month from today, not now. So that's why the problem, $700 deposit in the slide is an ordinary annuity problem, not annuity due. Good job, Jackie. Thank you. So I'll copy all the chats for my record. All right. And then I'm done with getting the attendance record. So yeah. Any other questions? If you don't have any questions, let's go back to the slide. We are ready to move on. And what about, so now you should have a clear understanding of annuity and annuity due. So annuity and annuity due both are same, equal payment at a regular interval and finite. The payment, the same $700 payments in this example, it has an end. Beginning is 1 month from today and repeat for 12 months and ends at the end of the first year. So 12 payment, it's a finite. So this is annuity. And my next question is, what about, we are looking at a multiple cash flow. Looks like annuity, but one difference. What if 700 payment every month? What if it continues forever, no end? So infinite. So is there that kind of cash flow? Yes. In the financial market, we see that kind of cash flow. Same cash flow, equal interval, repeat forever. So we need a tool to value that kind of infinite cash flow. And we need to give it a name. So its name, infinite series of equal payment at an equal interval, that's called perpetuity. So perpetuity is infinite series of equal payments. If the payments are not equal, they are not perpetuity, they are not annuity. So annuity and perpetuity are both for equal payment at equal interval. But one difference between annuity and perpetuity is annuity has an end, but perpetuity doesn't. So perpetuity continues for forever, but annuity stops. So you may wonder, what kind of security in the market provides endless payment? Stocks. So do you remember what you learned in chapter 1? What's the life? Can you define the life of a corporation? No, corporations don't die. Corporations are separate from shareholders. So corporations like Apple, corporations like Amazon, they don't die. So shareholders may die, founders may die, but corporations, they are separate legal entity. They don't have a fixed life. So corporations have unlimited life. So for example, the company Johnson & Johnson, it's over 100 years old. It's still alive and it will alive for a long time, I think. So corporations dividend, among corporation dividend, so preferred stocks. So corporations can issue preferred stocks. That's different from common stocks, but preferred stocks provide equal fixed dividend. So preferred stocks, dividend, fixed payment, repeating every quarter, same interval, forever. That's a good example of perpetuity. So my point is, perpetuity in financial markets, a good example is a preferred stock. So when you do a preferred stock valuation, you use perpetuity equation. So you apply the perpetuity concept to value preferred stock. So you are gonna learn this in more detail in chapter 8. So chapter 8, so after you finish chapter 6, the next chapter is bond valuation, and the following chapter is stock valuation. So in stock valuation, this perpetuity concept will come back. Any questions so far? So in short, annuity calculation, you learned how to do it. And good example is mortgage payment, car loan, fixed equal payment that has an end, and perpetuity repeats forever, and good example, preferred stock. So if you then have any questions, let's move on. All right. So annuities and perpetuities. So these are annuity present value and annuity future value equations. So you can use these equations to do the calculation. No problem with using. So you will get the same answer. But if you don't want to, it will take longer to use this equation. So I strongly recommend you use Excel. So when you use Excel, the present value, future value, rate, and number of period functions, Excel will do the calculation for you using this equation. I see something on the chat box. Okay, that's fine. So it's good. It's good. So okay, Jonathan. All right. So this is annuity. So you can use either equation or Excel, but I strongly recommend you practice using Excel, because I cannot give you unlimited time for quizzes and exams. There are limits. And in the real world, employers value who are knowledgeable and who can complete the task fast and accurately. Those skills are valued. So the same logic applies here. So when I give reasonable amount of questions to you during the quiz and exams, fast and accurate, speed and accuracy, will give you higher, help you earn a higher grade. So you need to practice. Don't practice during a quiz, during an exam. That will have a very negative impact on your grade. So you have to practice early. And it's okay to make mistakes while you're practicing. That's why I allow you unlimited number of attempts for each homework problem set. So as long as you complete the practice, learn from your previous mistake and improve, you will get a higher grade during the homework before the due date. So that's how I designed the homework problems. But you cannot do that for in the in-class quizzes and exams. In-class times and evaluation time, that's after your practice using the unlimited attention in homework. So quizzes and exams, speed is important, okay? All right. Yes, yes. Wei Hao, yeah, thanks for the comments. So that's exactly why I'm allowing you to make errors. Don't worry about losing points during the homework. So that's how you learn. Okay, good. So that's annuity. And for perpetuity, if you ask me, is there a formula? Is there a way to formula Excel function for perpetuity? No. Just perpetuity calculation is so simple. So we don't need to have a perpetuity. We don't need to ask for Excel to do the provide the perpetuity function. It's so simple. So perpetuity present value is C, means the same payment. So same payment that's repeating. So for example, if $700 every month forever, that's 700. So same payment divided by the rate, R. That's the present value. So perpetuity present value. Yeah. So you just use, so this formula will come back forever. So it's like if you're a finance student, you are gonna see this formula over and over again. So it's better, you better remember it. So perpetuity present value is the payment amount divided by the rate. But you need to be careful. These two should be consistent. So if it's monthly payment, the rate should be monthly. Annual, both should be annual, so vice versa. So consistency is very important. So annuities using calculator or Excel, here is an explanation. You already heard about it. And sign convention matters. So you should practice using annuity. So here is a practice problem. The correct answer is in Excel, but again, don't look at my solution. You do it first and compare it with your answer with mine. And buying a house, real world example, mortgage example, I have an answer here, but don't look at it. You should practice on your own. So we only have 3 minutes, so let me show you a quick explanation on what's remaining. So we use many examples, numerical example to help you practice. Use sign convention and rate calculation, future values. So there are just numerical examples to help you practice. And also, I give you an annuity 2 problem. So as I mentioned before, annuity 2 is very similar to annuity, but one difference is the payment is made start today, not one period from today. So which one is more valuable? Definitely annuity 2, because you make deposits earlier. And in annuity, you start today. So the future value will be higher, definitely. The value of annuity 2 is higher. So how do you know? So when you work on annuity 2 problem, again, it's very helpful to draw a timeline. So you have annuity 2 calculations. Also, I have a numerical example using perpetuity. So the beauty of perpetuity, it repeats forever, but I think mathematicians, to make this everlasting series simplified. So in this growing perpetuity example in this slide, one difference. The cash flow C grows at G%. G grows at the growth rate. And similar formula. And so you remember in the perpetuity formula, is present value is C divided by R because growth rate was 0. But when growth rate, the cash flow C is growing at the same rate, G, just a slight modification. So this growing perpetuity is you will use a lot in stock valuation later. So be prepared. So growing perpetuity example, and equations summary. And in the remaining slides, we talk about some more details about interest rates, APR versus EAR, those kind of details. So rates quoted by law is annual percentage rate, but APR ignores compounding. But we use compounding in finance, so APR versus effective annual rate that considers compounding. You should know how to convert APR to EAR. So those are the topics. And after you become familiar with those APR EAR conversions, we start talking about applying this concept to loans to prepare you for the next chapter, bond valuation. So this is what we are going to do on Monday. So as you can see from here, this chapter 6 is long and complicated, many questions. The calculations are not too bad, but if you don't study, you will easily get lost. So don't get lost. You should follow clearly. Do the homework. Don't miss the deadline. Okay, so we are done. So I'll see you Monday. So if you have any questions, stay. Otherwise, I will see you next week. And also, I have an office hour starting at 1 p.m. and office hours use a different Zoom meeting address. All addresses are on Blackboard. So if you can either stay or come back to my office hours if you have any questions. So bye.
Professor?
Hi, okay, let me start share. Hi, Jordan.
Hi, Doctor. I just wanted to ask a silly question about Connect. I know we have two assignments due today. One is, of course, the homework for Chapter 4, the problem set, and the other one is a reading assignment.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to know how how do we get credit for the reading assignment every time I go back?
So reading assignment, Connect shows me who completed it on time.
Okay. Mine, when I go to it to read it, it goes to the like it's a partner application called Read Anywhere, and downloads it. Yeah, so it still shows you that I read it.
Oh, I need to take a look. Jordan, Rudolph. Yeah. So can you come back my 1 p.m. office hour?
I can try to.
Sure. Yeah. And I use a different Zoom address. That when you come to my office hour, I can let you share the screen.
Okay.
And we can take a look together. Okay.
Okay. Sure. Okay.
I'm sorry. When would that be, Professor? Because I'm having the same issue. I wanted to see.
Oh, so you mean Connect reading assignment?
Yeah, it launches like an external application.
Yeah.